So Errol Spence Jr. retains his IBF welterweight world title with a 7th round TKO victory over Lamont Peterson. There is some debate about whether it's a 7th round or 8th round TKO victory. Lamont Peterson failed to answer the bell for the 8th round. So 7 rounds had been completed. The 8th round was supposed to start. I think the bell even went, but Peterson didn't answer the bell. So 7th round, 8th round, whatever you want to call it. This was what I expected, really. It was a case of Errol Spence wearing Lamont Peterson down and eventually getting him out of there after 7 rounds. A lot of people had expected, not everyone, but I'd seen quite a few people who had expected Errol Spence to just come and blast Lamont Peterson out of there. That's a scenario that I felt was unlikely. If you saw my pre-fight videos when I was talking about this fight, I said, I don't see Errol Spence taking Lamont Peterson out the way that Lucas Matisse did, because Errol Spence is not that kind of puncher. He's not a dynamic puncher. He's a methodical fighter. I've said this about Errol Spence in many, many videos before, but to me, he reminds me a bit of Marvin Hagler. He's not a dynamic puncher like a Tommy Hearns. He's not ridiculously fast like a Sugar Ray Leonard. No, he's a guy who's methodical, who's strong, who presses the action and chips away at you methodically. He's not a guy who generally will just come out with explosive, fast punches and whatever. It's like a lot of people who are not too familiar with Marvin Hagler and they've only maybe seen the Tommy Hearns fight. They think that Hagler's some kind of middleweight Mike Tyson or something who just rushes out and starts unloading bombs. That's not typical Marvin Hagler. He did that against Tommy Hearns because he knew that if he stayed on the outside, he'd be in danger against Hearns. So he had to get close quickly and put it on him. That's not typical Hagler. Hagler is generally a more methodical kind of fighter who will often box his way into fights. And the way he throws shots, again, like Spence, not extremely explosive, just good, hard, thudding, methodical punches, well delivered, etc. And obviously, Hagler was a middleweight, Spence is a welterweight. Hagler used to switch hit, whereas Spence fights exclusively from the southpaw stance. So there's differences, but I see a lot of similarities too. And also in the mentality, there's so much of a similarity between Errol Spence and Marvin Hagler. A blue collar, don't take no for an answer type mentality. You know, very, very tough fighting men. So yeah, the way that Spence fought against Peterson is what I expected. He came out and boxed a bit. He targeted the body right away, as Spence always does. He wore his man down. He eventually dropped him. I think it was in the 5th with a good left hand. Now, Peterson did catch Spence with some good shots throughout the fight. And again, I'm not surprised by that because Peterson has always been a good inside fighter. And he did in this fight what most fighters are not brave enough to do, or maybe some would say not foolish enough to do. And that is take on Errol Spence on the inside, because Errol Spence is a very good inside fighter, as we should all know by now. Most people don't even bother trying to engage with him on the inside. Peterson did. So because he did, he was able to catch Errol Spence. Normally guys like Kell Brook, etc. just don't even try and engage Spence on the inside at all. They'll just try to wrap him up or move away, but he won't try and actually engage with him on the inside. Peterson's always been a good inside fighter. So he was able to get a few shots off on the inside and, you know, go toe to toe with Spence, but he just didn't have the power to really put a dent in him. Keith Thurman, if that fight eventually does happen between Spence and Thurman, Thurman can fight on the inside, but I would say he's not as skilled on the inside as Lamont Peterson. I would honestly tell you that. He's a hell of a lot more powerful, but not as skilled on the inside as Peterson. And I would actually give Errol Spence a decided advantage on the inside over Keith Thurman. On the outside, Thurman's definitely got the advantage because he's faster. He's got faster hands. He's got faster feet. He's a more explosive, dynamic puncher. So definitely Thurman on the outside, but at mid-range and close range, it's going to be Errol Spence all day. But anyway, back to this Peterson fight. Yeah, he dropped Peterson in the 5th. Peterson's will was really waning. You know, it was diminishing. Into the 6th round, he was taking more and more punishment. In the 7th round, more punishment again. And at the end of the 7th, his corner said, you know what, you've had enough. They knew the body language of their fighter. They knew their fighter couldn't take no more, so they pulled him out of the fight. And it was a good decision. So, yeah, Errol Spence makes his first successful defense of his IBF World Welterweight title with a stoppage of Lamont Peterson. Hopefully, he gets the fights that he wants next, although I think he's got... Who's he got to fight next? I'm not sure, actually. IBF. Has he got any other mandatories out there or anything due? Because I was just thinking of Keith Thurman's situation. Keith Thurman has got to fight Sean Porter. Then he's got to fight the winner of Danny Garcia versus Brandon Rios. Not sure where a unification with Errol Spence will fit in there, although the WBC tend to be one of the sanctioning bodies that favors unifications over mandatories. So, you know, we'll see how it goes. But yeah, let me know what you felt about Errol Spence's performance against Lamont Peterson. Is it what you expected, or were you one of those people who were thinking Errol Spence is supposed to bomb Lamont Peterson out of there early? You know, is that what you thought? If that's what you were thinking, explain to me why you thought he would do that. Because from my vantage point, he's never been that kind of fighter. He's a guy who is strong and he can impose himself on you, but he's not, there's nothing about the punches that he throws that's dynamic. You know, as I say, I keep talking about Tommy Hearns. That's my, you know, that to me, that's the epitome of a dynamic puncher. Spence not that kind of guy. You know, if we're talking about welterweights here, he's more like a little version of a Marvin Hagler in his approach, you know, chipping away at you rather than just going out and blasting you away. He has had early wins, obviously, but I'm saying the early wins don't come from one punch or two punches. You understand? They come from breaking you down. Even in a quick fight, he's breaking you down with numerous clubbing blows. So, yeah. Let me know how you feel, people. And who would you like to see Errol Spence fight next? How do you see Errol Spence versus Keith Thurman going if that fight comes off? It's happening. I'm out.